Mr. Cameron McConnachie, the Regional Director for Legal Resources Centre, joins us now as we continue to highlight scholar transport challenges here in Gauteng. Cameron, we really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much. So we have seen the devastating impact on both parents and learners and even some of the drivers. All right, some children had to walk up to 8 kilometers to school during the protest action by the scholar transport providers. Services have since resumed, but we know these issues that they raised will not be resolved today, as you've just heard from that package. Let's unpack some of their most immediate grievances. I mean, from permit acquisition to budgetary constraints within the department. These will just continue at the moment. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I think that one of the big problems is that there's an underlying policy gap. If you look at the Gauteng education scholar transport policy, it's a mess, to be honest. It's outdated. It has lots of gaps in it. And I think that, the chaos that we're seeing now is not unexpected when you realize that the state has really failed to put in place that underlying policy or legislative framework. So I think that they are operating on a sort of ad hoc, moving from one disaster to the next disaster, whether it's permitting and safety issues or it's a failure to pay the transport providers. Those will continue. You're absolutely right. Those will continue until we have the sort of policy regulation framework that's going to bring clarity to the system, and everyone will know what the rules are. Everyone knows what system has to be followed. So I think that really needs to be that needs to be forefronted, and that needs to be focused on.
Absolutely. And while we're on that regulatory framework, I mean, the MEC speaks about compliance there. That should have been forced, as you've just alluded to, Cameron, right from day one. I mean, and that's the issue, right? These challenges could have long been properly planned for towards the end of even last year, just like we saw with the issue of school submissions taking center stage. Is this not a direct violation of these children's rights to basic education and life in general? Because the struggling parents already have to use those unmaintained, unroadworthy vehicles just because the system is always fraught with endless challenges.
Correct. It is an absolute direct violation of the children's right to basic education. So the Constitution sets it out very clearly, Section 29, that children have a right to basic education. Our courts have clearly set out that the right to basic education includes the right to access transport in circumstances where the child requires it. And there have been a number of court cases where the courts have expounded on this. They've impressed upon all the parties that it's necessary, it's needed, and it's an obligation. And our courts have also set out quite clearly over the years that when the state is aware of a constitutional obligation that comes with a budget, that requires budget, they have to budget for it, and they cannot continuously use the excuse that there is not sufficient budget for that. So we all know that we're in a serious austerity crisis. There's a lot of budget cuts in various departments on all kinds of issues, lots of services. But I do think that the founders of our Constitution, they set it out in a very clear way that the right to education is immediately realizable. It's not subject to budgetary constraints or issues. So it really has to be prioritized. And this is something that I think we all need to ensure that the state focuses on and make sure that children are transported to school timely, because it's one of those rights that's it's a right that gives you access to lots of other rights. And if you're not enjoying your right to education, you're not able to enjoy a lot of other rights.
Absolutely. Now, the MEC of Transport, Cameron, here in Gauteng, says there's a whole range of issues. I'm sure you saw her mentioning that they are still dealing with e-hailing and taxi licenses. I mean, like I said, Cameron, these issues should have long been addressed. These cannot be acceptable excuses so late a stage. What can those affected parents and even operators themselves do to hold the relevant authorities to account? Government failures simply cannot be ignored.
Well, I think what's interesting is that, unfortunately, things have come to a head in a very unfortunate way. But it is clear that a lot of people are speaking up and speaking very loudly, making their unhappiness known. And I think that needs to continue. we don't want school time to be disrupted. So wherever possible, children must be in school, and there should be transport wherever possible. But people need to continue to raise the issues that keep raising their heads. So whether it's by writing to your parliamentarian or speaking on radio or having public protests, or going to the courts. There are a number of public interest litigation centers that take on these types of cases, and they need to be, in appropriate circumstances, they need to be pursued. I'd just like to say that this is not just a Gauteng problem. I don't want it to belittle or make it less, but Gauteng is joined by a number of provinces around the country that are seeing these issues again and again. The Eastern Cape, for example, is another one where scholar transport is a huge problem, and there is litigation ongoing in the province. So we do hope that will lead to an improvement in the situation in the Eastern Cape, and hopefully Gauteng will also take note, and things will improve there too.
A very quick one, Cameron. I mean, the overall impact on education of these delays, systematic delays, and what can be done about them from a governmental perspective, you think?
I think that the schools need to be alive to when children have missed significant amounts of school. We need to schools need to bend over backwards to try and make sure that those children catch up.
Yeah.
So catch-up plan, sending work home with schools, giving parents or guardians assistance to try and help them catch up. Depending on the circumstances, I think we just need to be creative. And make sure that children are given the best possible chance of keeping up the work they've missed.
All right, Cameron, we really do appreciate your time with us and input, sir. That is Mr. Cameron McConnachie. There is from the Legal Resource Centres. He's the regional director there, with some input on the ongoing scholar transport here in Gauteng, but also in other parts of the country.